All right, we are going to start our unit on measurement. We're going to have two different types of measurement. We're going to talk about customary measurement, and then we're going to talk about metric system. The United States uses the customary system, so we're going to start with this one. There are different parts to customary measurement. We can use units of length, we can use units of weight, and we can use units of capacity. Knowing what unit you want to use is the first step. Once you know what unit, then you can get to work on other things. So we're going to begin with units of length. You're pretty familiar with some of these units. We have feet, and that abbreviation, as you should already know, is FT. We have inches, or IN, and we have yards, and there's also miles, or MI. Now, these are not the only customary measurements, but these are the four that we're going to focus on throughout our unit: feet, inches, yards, and miles. Now, if you have a composition notebook at home, in the back of your composition notebook, there are some charts, and I promise you that you're going to find a chart that talks about measurement. If you don't, that's okay. You're going to have a copy of our anchor chart to help you out. We're also going to write it down right now. So, we know, let me change pens. We know that 1 foot is the same or equal to 12 inches. That one we probably already know. One that you might not know is that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. A yard is 3 feet. We're familiar with yardsticks. Those are those long rulers that we have at school that are a lot bigger than just a regular old ruler. In fact, it's 3 times the size of a regular ruler because it's equal to 3 feet. The third conversion that you should memorize and you should just know is that 1 mile is the same as, and it's a big one, 5,280 feet. Whew, that's a lot. Those are the 3 different conversions for length, how long something is. And those are the ones that most people know. Now, on our anchor chart, it says that our first step is to figure out what unit we are using. Today, we're talking about length. The next step is to figure out if you're moving from a large unit to a small unit or a small unit to a large unit. That's important. For example, if I'm moving from feet to inches, I'm moving from a big unit to a small unit. Let's look at that. If I know that 1 foot equals 12 inches, I can put a whole lot more inches into a single foot. So, if I'm going from feet to inches, my number is going to get bigger. 1 foot is 12 inches. How do I go from 1 to 12? To go from 1 to 12, I get bigger. When we are dealing with whole numbers and we want our whole numbers to get bigger, we multiply. And when we get bigger from 1 to 12, we multiply by 12. So, if I have 2 feet and I want to know what that is in inches, I'm going from 2 to something else. I know that I can fit a lot more inches into a foot. So my answer is going to be bigger. Feet to inches. A foot is bigger than an inch. So more inches are going to be in a foot. I'm getting bigger. And we've already learned that to go from feet to inches, we multiply by 12. So 2 times 12 equals 24. There are 24 inches in 2 feet. All right. Now let's talk about yards. We know that 1 yard equals 3 feet. 1 yard is the same as 3 feet. So it takes 3 feet to go into 1 yard. Which unit is bigger? Remember, that's our second step. Are we going from big to small or small to big? Well, if 3 feet can fit inside 1 yard, a yard has to be bigger. So our units are going from big to small. I know it's kind of confusing, but that means that when we convert, our number has to be bigger. Because when we take our big yard, we're going to break it into 3 pieces. When we go from 1 to 3, we're going to multiply by 3. So to move from yards to feet, we multiply by 3. So if I have 2 yards and I want to know how many feet, what am I going to do? I'm going to multiply by 3. So 2 times 3 equals 6. There are 6 feet in 2 yards. Now let's look at miles. We know there for 1 mile, there are 5,280 feet. Whew, that's a lot of feet. In order to do this, we have to know, are we going from big to small or small to big? Well, I'm hoping you can see that 1 mile is definitely bigger than a foot. We go from 1 to 5,280. When we're using whole numbers and we get bigger, we know that we are multiplying. Here, we're multiplying by 5,280. Now, I'm not even going to try to do all this in my head, so I'm pulling out a calculator. If you have a calculator at home, please, you are welcome to pull it out. So let's think. If I have 2 miles and I want to know how many feet that is, what am I going to do? I'm going to multiply by 5,280. 2 times 5,280 equals 10,560. There are 10,560 feet in 2 miles. Awesome. Now, what happens if I want to go the other way? What if I have 72 inches and I want to know how many feet that is? Well, the first thing that I have to focus on is knowing my unit. I know that I'm going from inches to feet. And using my chart, I know that for 1 foot, there are 12 inches. So if I'm going to write it like this, I know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Here, I'm going from a smaller unit to a bigger unit. So my number, 12 to 1, is getting smaller. When we're dealing with whole numbers and we are getting smaller, we divide. To go from 12 to 1, we divide by 12. So to move from 72 inches into feet, what am I going to do? "72 divided by 12. We always go back to our 1 foot is 12 inches. 72 divided by 12 equals 6. So if I take 72 inches and I pass them out into groups of 12, 12 inches is a foot. 12 inches is a foot. 12 inches is a foot. If I pass that out into groups of 12 for each foot, I get 6 feet. 72 inches is the same as 6 feet. If I have, let's say I have 12 feet, and I want to know how many yards that is. Well, I'm going to go back to what I know. I know that 1 yard equals 3 feet. And when I write it down, I like to make sure my feet are on the same side and my yards are on the same side. That keeps Miss Wakefield organized. So, 3 feet equals 1 yard. And you know how important it is to Miss Wakefield to write things down correctly. If I'm going from 3 to 1, I'm getting smaller. 3 feet are going to go into 1 yard. So I'm breaking it apart into groups of 3. When we break things into groups, we are dividing. So I'm going to break off a group of 3, break off a group of 3, break off a group of 3, so that I can have yards. 12 divided by 3 equals 4. I can break off groups of 3 4 times. That means my 12 feet are actually the same as 4 yards. So, we need to remember, if you are going from big units to small units, your number gets bigger. You multiply. If you are going from small units, whoops, to big units, your number gets smaller. That's when you divide. All right, that's length. Our next video will talk about weight.